All right, the yogurt is made, the yogurt is strained and put in the jars. I have chili going on the stove. Now, another of my favorite fall activities is making applesauce. So we are going to cut up some apples that I bought from AZURE Standard that are organic. They are seconds, so they are all different sizes. Some of them are really small, but I got them cheaper because they are seconds. I got 40 pounds of apples for $40. That is cheaper than what I could get them at Aldi. I will share the link to AZURE Standard in case you don't get that or you have never heard of it before. You can see if they have a drop close to you. Ours is actually an hour and a half away, so it's not super close, but to me it's worth going and driving and getting bulk, organic, non-GMO groceries. So let's get this done. One thing I love about fall is apples, and I love making homemade applesauce. I actually made homemade applesauce a few years ago. This is not something I do every year. We've had so many bushel of apples a few years ago. I think I had 8 that I made a lot, and I mean a lot of applesauce. I actually do still have apples that I cut up, and they're in there that we can use in pies. We can pour over ice cream, we can heat up and just have for, like, you know, a dessert or a side for dinner. But we have went through all of the applesauce, so I wanted to make some more for this year. But I didn't want to use just the local orchard apples because they are sprayed, and I didn't want chemicals on this batch. So I found that AZURE Standard sells organic apples. Now these are seconds, so these were a little bit cheaper than the other organic apples that they sell or that you can get in the store. I always buy organic apples. They are part of the Dirty Dozen, so they do get sprayed a lot. So I always buy organic Gala apples from Aldi, and they are about $4 for a 3-pound bag. So they are a little bit more expensive, a little bit more than $1 per pound. These I paid $1 per pound, so I got 40 pounds of apples, organic apples, for $40. Now, I do not know what kind of apples these are. You get whatever they are picking at the time and that are seconds. So this could be a mix. It could all be the same thing. So this is the first time I'm trying this out. If you have ever ordered organic apples from AZURE and you've tried this method before, I would love to hear how it went with yours and see what you thought. I do not add any sugar, so this is all unsweetened applesauce. And if you've ever made unsweetened applesauce at home, you know that it's actually pretty sweet. Apples on their own are sweet, so I do not add anything to them. The only time I've ever added anything to our applesauce would be strawberries, and we made strawberry applesauce, which I'm thinking about doing again because it's really good. But I don't make a lot of it. So I've got to find some organic strawberries because if I've got organic apples, I'm gonna have to have organic strawberries. Got the apron on, getting some apples done. Now what I do with these, I sometimes will take the stem off if it's very long and then put it in the scrap bowl. And then I actually just use an apple cutter, an apple wedger. If you don't have an apple wedger, you could probably just cut it in fourths. I put the whole apple in here because these are organic, so I don't have to worry about all the nasty chemicals in there. If you want to take the core out, you can. You could do these separately, feed them to the chickens, which is what I could do with some of these. I use a food strainer. So after I cook these apples, I put it through like a hopper, and it goes through and it actually pushes the apple pulp out, and it takes all the seeds and any of the harder parts. It takes the skin and it shoots it out the end, and then I can give all that to the chickens as well. Let's get some more of these done because we do have 40 pounds to do. And then after I get these done, I will put this on the stove to start cooking and just kind of get them cooked down to where they're just kind of hot and softer so that they will go easily through the strainer. I just have a small little cutting board. I do have a knife over here in case I need it. So you want to cut out any bad spots you find. I did try one of these apple pieces and they're really good, nice and sweet. You do want a sweet apple for your applesauce. You don't want like Granny Smith's or anything that's kind of tart. Now I love a Granny Smith apple with some peanut butter. I also love Granny Smith apples in pies. That's what I usually buy for apple pie, is Granny Smith, unless I just have the canned apples in the pantry. This thing is just handy, and these are not very expensive if you don't have one. All right, so we have one box down, one box cut up, and it fit in here. This will cook down a little bit, so I'm not really worried about that. But I do have a whole nother box to do, and I do have another pot that's just a little bit bigger than this that I can use and set it on the stove and get it cooked down as well. So we will do that, get that going. As soon as the meat for the chili's done, we'll get this on the stove and get it started. And then probably gonna do some outside chores and come back and finish the apples. All right, let's get these on the stove. So while the apples are cooking down in the first pot, before I start the next set, I'm gonna come out here, I'm gonna check on the chickens, see if they need anything. I didn't get out here this morning, and I usually bring them a little bit of grain. They have access to the garden, so this was where I had all my tomato rows, my cucumber rows. I've taken all that out, so now they are spreading all these good manure and wood chips around for me. My plan is to cover this up good, get some rows ready the other way. I'm gonna try something different next year, and cover this up with a tarp that used to be on the pool, and we're gonna see how that works. But I still have some beautiful beets, I have turnips, and I have some radishes and some big red mustard. Of course, the asparagus is hanging out in that bed there. But I really like giving them access to the garden in the fall because they like to mix things up. Of course, they leave the manure behind, and which helps out the garden. So I'm gonna come over here. We're gonna check in here in the coop and see what they have. It looks like they probably need a little bit of grain, and but I'm pretty sure they have plenty of water. All right, it looks like they have a little bit of grain in there, a little bit of grain in there. A little shake down. And I think we got plenty of water. Yep. And it looks like one little egg. All right, let's go check on the little chicks that are actually in this one. So here are the 4 eggs that I incubated in a new incubator that I bought. And I had 11 eggs, and these were the only ones that hatched. There was a few that I checked that I don't think were fertilized. And then there was 3 that just didn't form right or something. But the problem we're having is we have a blind rooster in here. He kind of hangs out in here. He's been in here for months. But we got to figure out what to do with him in the winter. All right, got those chores done. Got the big pot out. I don't use this one very often because it is so big, and you can actually do like a double stack of pints in this if you want a pressure can, but I try not to pressure can too much because I don't like it. So we're gonna finish out this other 20 pounds of apples, get those done, get those on the stove after the others are done, and then we'll get these processed and canned. It is the next day. I started the apples yesterday, got them all cut up and actually cooked them down quite a bit. We ended up going somewhere last night and got home. I didn't want to finish the apples, so I'm going to finish them this morning. So I have this food strainer here. This is actually my grandma's. This is the original box from this food strainer. I have actually used this with her, and then she gave it to me one year and I have used it ever since. So I've just about used this ever since I've been canning, because we used it whenever we did tomato juice together, and and then I had it here and she would come help me. So this is a very old. Most of them have a guard over this now that kind of keeps it from splattering out. This one does not have that guard. So I make a mess when I do this, but this is how I do applesauce. So let's get started with that and I'll show you what we do. All right, so this is all of the apples. They actually cooked down out of both pots to fit in just this one pot. So it's almost completely full. I'm estimating about 20 quart jars. I washed more than that just because, but we'll run this through. So I'll get the rings ready. I will boil them, get them sanitized. I will get the applesauce in the jars. Then we'll be water bath canning them for about 20 minutes and then it'll be good to go. Shouldn't take very long, so let's get started. Now if you can see these, if you can tell, it's very mushy. This is a new setup for me. I usually have a steadier table for this. But you can see the applesauce coming out. You just want to keep it pushed down in here. Because this isn't sloped enough, it's not coming off of here enough, so it's actually making a mess in the floor. So depending on your setup, you'll have to watch for that. I did heat these up again this morning just to make sure that they were going to go through here pretty easily. All right, we got the last scoop in here. So we're gonna finish out this applesauce. The chickens are gonna love the treat. Got the lids in the water ready to boil and sanitize, and now we also have our water bath canner going. So I've got this with water at the bottom. It keeps the jars off the bottom so they don't bust, and then once this gets hot, we will get our jars in there and make sure that they are covered with about 1 inch of water, and they will boil for about 20 minutes. Looks like we are ready to fill these jars. Now I thought about 20 jars, going by what I think. I'm going to clean that off, and then we're going to start filling jars, and I have about 10 extra, I think. Alright, so you just want to clean all of this out of here. And then you want to scrape all this off. All that is yummy applesauce as well. Get all the way around. Get all that out of there. It's time to put our applesauce in our jars. And one thing that you always want to make sure is that the top of your jar is smooth, that there's no chips or anything like that, because it won't seal correctly. You can still use them to, if you want to store things in the refrigerator, but you don't want to can with them because they won't seal good. I do have some, let's see if I can find one. So this is an old, I'm pretty sure an old mayonnaise jar. These came from my grandma's, and I only use these for like applesauce or things like that. I don't pressure can in these, and I actually got rid of some of these because I got more jars. But there's a couple in here, and I'll just put applesauce. I don't find that they don't really hurt anything with just the applesauce. So the canner is heating up, the lids are warm, so we're gonna get this in here. This is for pulling out, the little magnet on the end for pulling out the lids, which makes it a lot easier. And then this, you can take out air bubbles with this side, and then this, we're gonna leave a 1/2 inch air space, and this is actually marked on here, so then we can kind of see how far down we're supposed to be. Now, if you go about 1 inch is about to the bottom of the seal there. So we're gonna go to 1/2 inch, which is about halfway up in the middle of those rings right there. You do want to mix up your pot of applesauce right here really good, because you will have where the concentrated part of the applesauce came, you'll have like a big lump, and you don't want to have some jars that has a ton of like really concentrated applesauce or thick applesauce, and then some that doesn't. So my fingers were a little off, so I got 12 jars of canned applesauce. This one I will probably, it didn't fill as full, it's a little bit short, but we will, I will probably just put it in the refrigerator. I've got 11 that I will water bath can, and so next is wiping off the rims, putting the lids and the rings on, and getting them ready to go into water canner. All right, we're gonna wipe these jars off if we see any applesauce, especially on the outside. We don't want it to be a sticky mess. So we have our lids, they are nice and hot. So we have our rings, we have our lids, we have cleaned the rims of our jars. So now we are just going to place our lid and our ring on there and just finger tighten them. We do not want them super tight. We want to let some of the air out when it's canning. I'm going to leave one uncanned because it is going to go straight into the refrigerator. I'll just take all these other jars that I didn't use because my measurements are so far off. I will just take them and I will put them back on the shelves. I put them upside down so that dust and bugs don't get in them. And so next time they should be fairly clean, except for the ones that I did drop some applesauce into. So I put a different lid on this one because we're gonna put this in the fridge, and when we open these, we usually take the metal lid off and we put one of these plastic lids on. Now, I bought these before on Amazon, and I just found some at Walmart. So these are wide mouth ones, and I also have some regular ones. These come in really handy. You can store soups, you can store all kinds of things in your mason jars and have these lids ready to go. And they do have a little rubber seal on them inside, so they do seal this jar up really nicely. It is time to get these water bath cans. So we are going to move right over here to the stove. We have the canner is going. It is nice and hot. We've got the water boiling. So we are going to the water boiling, take about half of the jars and put them in there and do the other half. That way I don't have like a really full pot and then like 2 jars. busted. Oh, that's great. Ah, it was one of the mayonnaise jars. Busted. Don't use the mayonnaise jars. So now I have 10, and we have applesauce in the water. All right, so there's 5 jars in here. It's already boiling. I'm gonna put this lid on it. I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes. And not that timer. I'm gonna set a timer for 20 minutes. I'm going to then let those cool down a little bit. I'm gonna take them out and I'll do the rest of them the same way that I did those. I'm excited to try this new applesauce for this year.